friends, I'm Anita, and I'm back with another video. I haven't done a lot of reflecting on 2024 because my reading in 2024 was pretty weird, like if I compare it to other years. But on the other hand, I also like sort of to do some sort of reflective video on the last year, and so I thought I wanted to talk about the books, the serious books that I've been reading. So I want to talk about some of the series I've started, the series that I've continued with, and the series that I completed, but also the series that I decided to DNF. And so I thought I wanted to start with those that I DNF'd over the year, that I decided not to continue with, and those that, and then get into the ones that I started over the year, and then what I continued, and then lastly I want to talk about those that I completed over the year. So in terms of some stats before I go into it, I DNF'd 7 series. I started on 16. That's not a great number when you're trying to stop reading too many new series, but yeah, that happened. And then I continued with 10 series, where some of them I read a lot of books in the same series, so made a lot of progress on it. And then I completed 6 series. So but as I said, let's start out with the book series that I decided to DNF. The first one is The Inheritance Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I actually read the first 3 books in the series, and I enjoyed the first one. I think I gave the first one 4 stars, but the last 2, the books 2 and 3, they weren't as fun, and they was a little similar to the first one anyway. And yeah, so I found it a little bit boring, and I didn't want to continue on. So I decided to put it down after the 3 books that I read. Another one that I DNF'd was The Jameson Family. I read the first one, There's Only Been You, and I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't really a book that I enjoyed. I don't remember exactly what it was about. Yeah, there was a lot of miscommunication about their past, and yeah, just wasn't my kind of book. Another one that I started but quickly decided to hold on. Yeah, it was called The Temptation by T.K. Lee. Another one that was just not the best. And what annoyed me a little bit about it was that, I mean, it wasn't done when I read the first book. The romance had just begun, and I was like, I don't want to continue. So I don't actually know how the romance ends or anything, but decided to DNF it. It wasn't my kind of thing. It was another one I tried out was the Dark Olympus series by Katie Roberts. Obviously I've seen her name floating around on BookTube, and especially on Instagram a lot. And I mean, it had some fun moments, but I just I don't know, it didn't have a lot of plot, and I decided it wasn't really my kind of thing, so I decided to skip it and just stick with that one single book I read, and then not continue with the series, and decided to DNF it there. And then I tried out the Campers and Criminals by, I forgot the author's name, Tonya Kappas. And this was a cozy mystery series, and I've heard excellent things from others who've read it, and it's a very, very long cozy mystery series. So I decided, when I just gave the first 2-3 stars, I decided to bow out of it and not continue, because I don't want to waste my time with it. Such a long series if I only gave them all 3 stars. So that was my takeaway from that one. And then I also tried out the Night Sides books. I actually read the first and the second book over the year, and I gave both of them 3 stars to 3.5 stars. So I decided it probably wasn't my thing, especially not the audio. The audios weren't very good, and that's the way that I was able to read them. And considering I only gave them 3 stars, both of them, I don't want to go out and buy a lot of books from the series in order to figure out if it's something for me. But I do have some of his other books, so I'll try him from another series, and maybe I'll enjoy them, and then maybe I'll revisit it in the future. We will see, but for now it's definitely a DNF. And the last one that I DNF'd over the year was Havenbrook by Brighton Walsh. I tried the first one. I actually read another book by Brighton Walsh before, and I really liked that one, so it's just a miss, I think, for me. But I didn't like this one, and so I decided not to go on with it. Next up, let's talk about the series that I started and my thoughts on them. The first one that I started was the Kingston Lane series by T.L. Swan. I actually honestly dislike this book so much, but because I've read so much else T.L. Swan, I'm gonna give it another go with the series and see if maybe it was just the character that I just didn't enjoy, because I really disliked our main male character in this one. And I know that she can write books where I completely fall off the charts, and then she can write books that I really enjoy. So we'll see. I'll give this second book a chance, but if it falls into that 2 to 3 star rating as well, I'll just skip the series and stick to those that I enjoy. And yeah, so that was that one. Then I started on the Deadly Secrets series by Elizabeth Norton. The first one in that series was Repressed, and I have read Elizabeth Norton's books before, so I knew I was going to enjoy it. And I gave this one 4 stars, so it's definitely a good start to a series. And I do have the second one on my Kindle. I think it was one of those that I got as an e-arc from NetGalley at one point. So maybe if I finish that, I should add my read, so that my ratio isn't so bad in there. But anyway, I liked the first one. It was fast-paced. It's a romantic suspense, and it had a lot of things going for it. So I always know this. They are very fast-paced books, those that she writes. So yeah. Then I started on Big Rock by Lord Blakely. I actually got a bundle of, I think, the first 3 books in the series, and I read the first book. So I definitely want to read the remaining 2 books that I have on that series, because I gave the first 4 stars. I thought it was a pretty decent romance. It was a friends to lovers romance where they had been friends for so long and was in a business together and stuff, and then had to pretend being engaged in order to get a good deal for his father. And she was being stalked by an ex, and so it was a good situation for them to sort of pretend to be in a relationship. But then obviously they decided to have developed feelings for each other. Then I tried out Crew of Hunters by Heather Graham. I definitely want to try another one of those. I gave the first one 3 stars, so it's not my favorite, but I'm interested in trying another one, just to see if it becomes better. So I will give that one another shot and then see how it goes. And then I started The Westcott Family, and that was a really good book. The first one is called Never Saw You Coming. That was so good. It was following this girl who had amnesia. She was actually the couple here met each other in a coffee shop and had a very bad first meetup. He didn't really like her, and she didn't like him. But then something happens outside of the coffee shop. She's actually getting mugged and robbed and basically left for dead. She sort of like hits her head really hard against the wall in that attack, and he's the first one to respond to her and give her some help and call for help and stuff. And so then she loses her memory, and he wants to sort of figure out what's going on, and then they start to know each other, and he wants to help her and all of these things. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 to 4.5 stars. Definitely enjoyed it. The next one that I finished was the first book in the K9 Special Ops series by T.O. Fallon. The first one was called Tough Justice. This is a was an interesting one. It's very Harlequin romantic suspense like. That was sort of, it could fit into a Harlequin book line. It was it followed this man. Our hero is working for the police in the sort of drug special force kind of thing, and our female heroine, she is working at the hospital where people are getting overdoses and stuff. So she's saving his colleague, and they have a lot of grudges towards each other's profession. So yeah, it's a sort of very interesting concept, and I really ended up enjoying this book so much, more than I thought I would. So I ended up giving it 4 or 5 stars, and I would like to read on in the series. And I think the library just have the second book, but I don't know about the third one. The next one that I read was Heart and Mercy by Megan Bennon. Yeah. The first one, that book, I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's such a good romantasy. For romantasy, this is what I want. The kind of book that I want. It is a good blend of romance, and there's a lot of good there was a good amount of world building in this as well, And yeah, just really enjoyed it overall, and I can't wait to read on in the series. But the books on ebook are super expensive all the time, so I'm waiting for it to go on sale so I can buy it at a little bit cheaper price. Yeah, anyway, but I really enjoyed it. Gave it 4.5 stars. Next up, I also started on The Wounded Kingdom by R.J. Barker. This is the first book, Age of Assassins, and it's sort of, I read it for the fantasy vlog, the reboot of my channel, and it sort of reminds me a little bit of the Assassin and Princess series book, where we follow this boy who's a cripple. He becomes a spy, has to figure out things that happened for the king, and while the master is sort of trying to figure her own thing out. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Can't wait to read on in this series. I gave it 4 to 4.5 stars. The next series is another one I read for the same fantasy vlog, and that was The Chronicles of Osrith. I mean, I thought it was I thought it was a standalone. Is The Goblin Emperor, and I guess you could say it is, but there's a companion novel set in the same world, so I'm interested in reading the other ones. This was definitely very interesting. It started out better than the overall. I mean, I really liked the start and really liked the finish, but the middle part was a little bit. And then there was something about the writing style, you really do have to get used to it. But otherwise, I super enjoyed it and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So it's definitely not a bad book in any way. The next thing that I also started was the Night Runner series by Lynn Llewellyn. This is the first sort of, again, for the same vlog. And so Night Runner by Lynn Llewellyn is sort of a fun fantasy thing that also reminds me a little bit of Robin Hobb, in that she has a very good, it's sort of the same style, and then we have following some characters, Alec and Sergil, who they have a sort of special bond together, and yeah, sort of reminding me a little bit of the Fitz and the Fool bond, but with this one they're more of a canon plot, even though they're not yet, but you can tell that the author wants to go that way. Whereas Robin Hobb doesn't really go to that length in the Farseer books or whatever. But yeah, really enjoyed it, cannot wait to read on in the series, so we'll definitely try more books in that series. Next up, I started on the O'Hurley series by Nora Roberts. This is a 4-book long series, and follows this woman who has and her romance story. She is a widower and has 2 boys, then meets this guy who has to write the story of her late husband. He writes a book, he has to write an autobiography about him and stuff, and so he more or less moved into their house, and sort of they got to know each other. It was very good. I gave it 4.5 stars, so really enjoyed it. Then I started the Dream Harbor series, while I actually had intentions of DNFing that series by Laurie Gilmore. I am reading the next book this month, if I can get around to it, hopefully. So I'll give it another go, but we'll see when I finish that one if I'm gonna continue. Yeah, so I'm giving it another chance. Then I started Miss Marple by Agatha Christie. This is obviously very famous mystery series, and I read the first one. Have it on my TBR for the year, so I will probably almost finish it. We will see. Then I started on The Castaways by L.J. Shen. I think that was the author's name. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I really can't wait to follow the other romances. Obviously, it's a group of 3 men who sort of has had a difficult time growing up, and then they're actually pretty successful now. So it's sort of their stories, the love stories. So, and then last and finally, I started on the Seven Waters series by Juliet Marillier. I love this one, gave it 5 stars, one of my favorite books of the year, so I cannot wait to move on in the series, and I just got the second one, The Son of Shadows. So hopefully I will be able to get to that relatively soon over the year, but we'll see. Now let's get into the books that I continued with. The first up we have The 9 Lives Magic by Danielle Garrett. I actually read 6 books in that series, so I'm almost caught up to it. I think I read the most recent one. Maybe actually, no, I have I think I have a couple of books on here for the next year, but otherwise I caught up to it. So definitely happy with that progress. I have enjoyed it. They are super short, they're very fun, and they have sort of a good blend of mystery and magic. And so in that way I really enjoy them. Yeah. And another one that I also continued on with and almost caught up to was the Vampire Knitting Club series by Nancy Warren. I only have one book left to read, and I had it on my TBR for January, but the audio doesn't come out until February, so I will listen to it in the next month instead and finish up the series. But I have really been enjoying that series as well. It's one of my favorite mystery series, so I want to recommend this one more, then I will recommend the 9 Lives of Magic, but they're very different, so yeah, maybe you'd like both of them. Another series that I made a good dent into last year as well was the In Death series, where I think I read 9 books, 8 or 9, somewhere around that number. I more or less try to read one every month. I also read one of them. There was a novella called Creation in Death, I think, but I really enjoyed it. It was such a good series. I more or less give all of them 4.5 to 5 stars because I always enjoy them so much. And yeah, have already continued in this year, but they are expecting to publish books 60 something next year, over the year. So yeah, I don't know when I will ever catch up to this series, so it's a long-running process. Next up, I continued with How to Train Your Dragon series, and I read this book, How to Cheat the Dragon's Curse. They are still a lot of fun. They are middle grade, and I usually read them for readathons, and I usually get through them in a couple of hours over a day. So they're very, very fast read. Another one that I started and continued with was The Keepers by Stephanie St. Clair. The first one I gave 4 stars, and the second one I gave 3 stars, but still I'm interested in reading on because they are very fast paced, they're not very long, and they follow a sort of secret service security thing, and it was a lot of fun reading that. Next up, I continued with Magic Bleeds by Ilona Andrews. I had actually been working on it for quite a while, and I only had like 50-ish pages to read, but still it was a finish and it was a continuation. This is the 4th book in the series, and I am definitely planning on continuing with this series. Another one I continued with was The Oxford Time Travels. I read To Say Nothing of the Dog by Connie Willis. I gave it 4 to 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Not as much as the first one, but I still really enjoyed this one as well, and I cannot wait to move on in the series. Then I continued with Vision of Heat by Nalini Singh. This is the 2nd book in the Side Changeling series. I also have books 3 and 4. So I definitely want to try and continue with this. Took me a long time to finish it because I started it and then put it down for a long time, but it is finished. It is good to make sure to finish the books as well sometimes. I don't know why I put this one down, but I have read both Chrestomanci and the story 9 Lives of Christopher Chant, which is the first 2 books in the Chrestomanci series. I gave this one, The Charmed Life, 4 stars, and I gave this one, The Lives of Christopher Chant, 5 stars. So it definitely was better than the first, but I really enjoyed both. Diana Wynne Jones has a really special type of writing style that I really enjoy. Last and finally, I also... Actually, no, I didn't caught up. I read the next book in the Christmas Stories series by Tom Fletcher, and I read the Christmas Stories and the Naughty List. I have still one more book to read, and I will probably try and get to that next Christmas. So yeah. Now let's get to the last and final part of this, which is the books that I actually did complete or caught up to. There's some of them I'm a little uncertain about, but I believe it's complete. So let's talk about those. The first one that I completed was the Roaring Trinity series by Laurie Robinson. This is the third and final book in this series. I really enjoyed it. This last and final book I gave 4.5 to 5 stars. I actually almost gave it 5 stars. I don't know if it's my favorite because I really enjoyed the first one as well, but they're both really good. This one is a girl who sort of escapes her life, and she's the last daughter of this man, and then she escapes it and moves in with pretend to have a quick marriage to this guy who is also trying to get out of a situation at his home. So really enjoyed it. These books were so fun. Yeah. Then I completed on the Smith Quartet by Julia Quinn. I read the last and final book in that over the year, and we'll be continuing with the Bevelstoke books, I think. At some point, we'll see when. I also read the first and the second book in the Fool Me Once series. This is one of the ones I'm not sure about. I don't think it's going to be more. It's a lot told there's going to be more, but I also don't know if there's planned to be a third book. But I enjoyed both. I gave them both 4 stars, but I believe the second one was my favorite of the 2. So if I have to pick one, I think that one was best. So yeah. And then I read the last, I think it's the last book, but again, I'm not sure if there's going to be more, but I think it's the last book in the Chronicles of St. Mary series, The Good, the Bad, and the History. Another lovely installment in this series. I love this series so much. I think it's book 15 or something like that in the series, and yeah, there's definitely no talks about a sequel coming out this year, so I don't know, and usually there's been a new one every year, so I will say I have an idea that a feeling it might be complete, and it also was sort of a good end to the series if it was. So, and the last and final series that I started and completed was the Allure series by R.S. Gray. I read actually both book 1 and 2 in this year, and they're both really good books. It was a lot of fun following the series. I gave both of them 4.5 stars. I think that they both had were equally good. So definitely I recommend the series if you like sort of romance. It was one of her earlier novels, so also have that into your consideration. But those are all of the series books that I read from over the last year. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I talked about today, and if you agree with any of my thoughts. What were some of the books series that you tackled over the last year? Was there any good finishes in there? Anyway, this is everything I have for you today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.